the Florida Gators could make some pretty significant progress with their recruiting class this week.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the Olympics are done. Sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And like I said, the Florida Gators are potentially adding to their recruiting class this week. Ben Hanks Jr., legacy cornerback, is committing this Friday at night, I'm pretty sure. I think it's going to happen in the evening-ish. It's weird. You know, sun's probably still going to be up, but it's going to be like 7-ish. But Ben Hanks Jr. is committing this Friday, and he's deciding between Florida, which has always been expected to be a finalist at the absolute minimum for him, Miami, which has always been expected to be a finalist at the absolute minimum for him, and Louisville. And Louisville is kind of the odd team out there, but they're not out of the competition at all for Ben Hanks Jr. It's just, you know, he's a Florida legacy, lives in Miami. Louisville is up there. And that's also not super surprising. I do think the defenders, they kind of get interested in Louisville. It's a fun spot to play defensively. Usually pass rushers, but they've had some pretty good corners that they put into the NFL, DBs in general, into the NFL lately. I still think that Ben Hanks Jr. will wind up being a Florida Gator. When it's all said and done, I think he'll be a Florida Gator. I think he commits there this Friday. And as long as Billy Napier, Will Harris have jobs in Gainesville, I think that he will remain a Florida Gator commit for the 2025 class. And I will say this, I don't like to say that he's one of the best corners in the class. We'll talk about Brian Smith, hopefully this week about that. I don't want to say he's one of the best corners in the class, mostly because I haven't really watched the kids that Florida isn't recruiting. You know, if there's a top corner from Ohio and he's never been in contact with Florida, I'm not wasting my time watching his film, right? So I don't know if he's one of the best in the class because I haven't watched the other guys. But that being said, I can't see many high school corners being better than what Ben Hanks Jr. is doing right now. It's a hard sell for me there. Just because, again, I'm not saying he's one of the best just simply because I haven't watched the rest. But watching his film, I don't know. You'd have to really sell me that he's not one of the best. And I think on 3, he's listed as on 3 has Ben Hanks Jr. as the 72nd overall player in the country, 10th corner in the country, 12th player in the state of Florida. 24/7 has him as the 81st player in the country, 10th corner, 14th player in the state of Florida. ESPN has him as the 116th player in the country, 11th corner, 16th player in the state of Florida. And the next part, Rivals has him unranked nationally, 27th corner in the country, 57th player in the state of Florida. Now, I understand Rivals has a new logo. That's great for them. Also, by the On3 composite, he is the 99th ranked player in the country, 11th corner, 14th player in the state of Florida. However, you read everything else that I just talked about, and like I was saying, despite Rivals having a new logo, which it does look pretty clean, I'm not going to lie to you, One of these things just doesn't belong here. I don't get it. 27th corner. Find me 26 better corners in high school. Find me 26 better corners right now in all of high school, not just 2025 class. 2026, 2027, 2028. Find me 26 better corners than Ben Hanks Jr. I would be stunned if you can do that. And I'm not saying he's this generational corner. I'm saying when we're talking about just pure corner ability, pure corner traits, long, athletic, aggressive with the ball in the air, pretty confident, I want to say, just the way he carries himself. I feel like he kind of knows he's that dude. And I think he's got right now, I think you can line him up with anybody that you think is going vertical. I think he can play cover 3. I think he can play quarters. I do think that long-term man ability needs to improve a bit. But as far as, what modern defenses do, a lot of it's quarters, a lot of it's cover 3, cover 2. He's in a sit and zone a lot. That's like, you look at what Florida recruits at corner. They're recruiting guys that could do that. Cormani, Jakeem Jackson, Dijon Johnson, Jameer Grimsley, Teddy Foster. They're getting these long athletes that can make a play on the ball and teaching them how to do the other stuff. Hell of an approach. Like, I love the approach. I love the approach of going, hey, we're going to bank on traits that you can't teach. The issue that this staff has had has been you need to develop those guys quicker than you've been doing it. But Ben Hanks Jr. is someone that I think will be a Florida Gator. I love his skill set. I love his size. Again, he's listed as 6'1", 170. Probably needs to bulk up a little bit, but he looks like he's 6'1" with like a 6'4", 6'5" wingspan. That's huge. Like, I'll take that 10 times out of 10. I think that having that wingspan matters more than height itself. Like, I'm 5'11" with a 6'3", 6'4" wingspan. Play bigger, right? You could do that. Like Ben Hanks Jr. Again, 6'1", but arms look really long. 6'4", 6'5" wingspan would not shock me at all. That means you could go up with those big guys like that, and you can kind of get your hand in the way, make a play on the ball, do that. Ben Hanks Jr., hell of an athlete. 6'1", good size as it is. Add the athleticism, add the length, and you're talking about someone with elite traits. Yeah, add him to your team, figure out the rest later. The Florida Gators are recruiting another DB that is committing this weekend. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But playoffs are winding down. Hell, baseball has got, 2 months left now, including the World Series, or the whole playoffs in general. The Olympics are done. Football's coming back, luckily. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets any time that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long, including Dinger Tuesday today. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. And remember that FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And this Friday, Ben Hanks Jr. is announcing his commitment. This Saturday, Bryce Fitzgerald is announcing his commitment. And Bryce Fitzgerald's a safety that, I'm sorry. This right, Saturday, 17th is Saturday. There we go. This Saturday, Bryce Fitzgerald is also announcing his commitment. And it's an interesting one. Before we even talk about him as a player, there was a point in the spring where it felt like Florida was the lean. And I say the lean because I don't think this is ever a situation where we were like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a Gator. And if you felt that way, I'd love to hear why, because I never really felt that way. I think that one thing with Bryce Fitzgerald's recruitment that we've heard is you're only going to know what he wants you to know, right? I think he's done a good job of keeping things relatively not close to the vest, because Well, he said things outright, but just in the sense of people being able to predict what's going to happen, I don't think they've been able to do that. But again, at some point in the spring, maybe, late or early summer, you can call it, during that June official window, there was a point where it felt like Florida was the lead. That confidence since then has dwindled, unsurprisingly. I don't know. It feels like every time we hear, oh, yeah, Florida's in the lead, but he's not going to commit for a few months. Feels like every time we hear that, or he's not going to commit for another month or so, I feel like every time we hear that, it's like, okay, well, by the time he commits, a lot of time will have passed, and things haven't changed much in Florida's favor. And again, I think that happens quite a bit. Lagonza Hayward's one where reportedly he was willing to commit while he was on his official visit, but he had a date set. Billy Napier, again, this is just the report. I forgot who reported it, but it was reported. But Billy Napier apparently was like, hey, like, take your time, basically. And you lost him. And now he's going to play for Tennessee, which is super duper cool. Right? That's fun. We love that. Love seeing a good football player go to a rival because you were willing to wait. Hate that so much. But yeah, Bryce Fitzgerald, what I thought was the case, and I said this on the show multiple times regarding Bryce, was that I felt like Miami was always his first option. He's from Miami, goes to Columbus, which is the same high school that Mario Cristobal went to. And I feel like for Bryce Fitzgerald, Miami was always option number one. And I said this on the show that to my knowledge, Miami was option number one, but he didn't have a committable offer at that point. And so my whole stance was, hey, even if you do get him to commit, I think Miami would be able to come in and snake him if they wanted to at some point. No matter who he commits to, I think if Miami wants him, they can get him because I think he wants to play for the Hurricanes. But I did think that, hey, he would probably pick Florida if Miami would not take him at that time. Now, things have changed. What once felt like a Florida-Miami battle, I guess, if you want to call it that. Again, I don't think he had I don't know this for a fact. This is me speculating. Like I've said multiple times, this is me speculating. I've heard that Miami is option number one for him, and I'm speculating that he didn't commit there because he didn't have a committable offer, which the committable offer things are very odd. You see kids, 100 kids are going to tweet, oh, Florida offered. Not all those kids have the option to commit. Okay, we've seen that happen. And it's not similar to the situation of going, oh, yeah, like, just like wait till your recruitment day or your commitment day. It's different. It's you have a scholarship offer. However, we have kids higher above you on our board. And so you can't commit to us yet until we get answers from them, until we get no's from them, basically. So that's what I mean when I say committable offer is you have an offer, or even if you don't have an offer, but you don't have the actual option to commit to that school. So that's what I mean when I say committable offer. And so my thought was he had an offer from Miami, but not a committable one, would go Florida. Now, the final four are Florida, Miami, Florida State, and LSU. However, the two schools that for months, many people were saying, hey, he's going to be Florida or Miami. It's just a matter of if he gets that committable offer or when he wants to make his decision, whatever it may be. Now, he said, hey, you know who's at the top of my recruitment? Florida State and LSU. That's an interesting one. I don't know why or how, I guess, Corey Raymond is all of a sudden good at recruiting again now that he's at LSU. I don't get it. But Bryce Fitzgerald, and it is possible that one of the reasons that he doesn't have a committable offer from any school that might not have that is the size. 5'11", 175 is kind of small. I think he's versatile to play both safety spots and can come down to star every now and then. But you look at his rankings, and he's a unanimous 4-star. Every recruiting service has him as a 4-star. On3 has him as the number 101 player in the country, 8th safety, 17th player in the state of Florida. Rivals has him as a 106th ranked player, 13th safety, 21st player in the state of Florida. 24/7 has him as the 217th player in the country, 18th in the state of Florida, 18th safety, 27th player in the state of Florida. And ESPN has him as the 232nd player in the country, 15th safety, 28th player in the state of Florida. So a little bit of a wider spread. However, I do feel like that's more common when we're talking about guys into the hundreds. That being said, I think he should be higher than 217, 232. I understand the height is a thing. 5'11 is not super big in just modern football. I mean, we've seen that with Bryce Thornton. We've seen that with a lot of safeties lately where it's like, yeah, they're 5'11, but receivers are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, everybody's bigger. You got to cover tight ends, everything's shit. I get it. Wouldn't hold me back at all. And I feel like even if you do have an issue with that, your threshold is probably 6 feet. And at that point, it's such a small difference for a good football player that can play multiple spots. Add the kid. He's a hell of a safety. I would take him any day of the week to be one of our top safeties in the 2025 class. Right now, seems Florida State, LSU, and I hate that. He's a good player. I want him on my team. Unfortunately, does not seem like we are going to get that, which just sucks. But for the Florida Gators also, like I feel like we've talked about two Gates really, right? One that we think will be a Gator, one that we don't. What's next? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning championships. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. With superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash for all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And I would be remiss, like I said, we talked about Ben Hanks Jr., we talked about Bryce Fitzgerald. Now, as far as recruiting goes, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Nan Montgomery next, right? And Nan Montgomery is someone that, and I hate saying this, just because I think a lot of people say this not meaning it. And by that, I mean, I think a lot, my thing is that Nan Montgomery, I think, is going to rise. Okay. Not a ton, but I think he's going to rise. And I hate saying that because I feel like so many people, they just go, yeah, kid you think is going to be a Gator, you think is going to rise. Crazy. You think he's better than the recruiting services say he is, which is a fair opinion, by the way. I don't want to make it seem like that's not a fair opinion. I do think Nan Montgomery will be a Florida Gator. I have said this for months. I still feel this way. We sent the message to the Insider program, which links in the description below. We sent the message to the Insider program, I think early June, maybe, and saying that I think Nan will be a Gator. I have not changed on that, and I'm not changing on that. I still think Nan Montgomery will be a Florida Gator. You look at where he's ranked on 3, as in them just themselves, unranked nationally, 67th receiver, 49th player in the state of Florida. 24/7, unranked nationally, 43rd receiver, 46th player in the state of Florida. ESPN, 107th nationally, 10th receiver in the country, 14th player in the state of Florida. Rivals, 63rd nationally, 11th receiver, and 13th player in the state of Florida. I will say this just off the bat. It's incredibly wild to me to see Rivals and ESPN be higher on a guy than I am. I feel like it's usually the other way around. But that's where we're at. Higher on a guy than the other recruiting services are. I think Yeah, I think ESPN rivals that 63 to 107 range. Like, I have no complaints about that. I do have complaints about him being the 67th receiver in the country in on three. I think that is you know what, crazy. I really like his skill set. I don't think he's got, elite speed. He doesn't have elite size, but I think he's a guy that can win, can win vertically without having that elite speed, which, by the way, that's a really great trait to have. Just being able to get vertical, stack, and run by. And I mean, this is a kid that he's felt like a Florida lean for a while, especially with us. He's committing on August 25th, as things are presently said. He wants to commit back in his home state because he's going to be up in the Northeast, not in Florida. He's playing for Miami Central, but originally from the Northeast. I think he's going to be a Gator. I think he's a damn good football player. And I think that when you look at Nan Montgomery, Joshua Moore, and Vernell Brown III as your three receivers, you can add a fourth if you want. Initially, we heard the staff wanted to add four. I'm hearing that now that might just be three, which would make sense why they wouldn't take a commitment from a kid like Kobe Howard, who we talked about quite some time ago, and committed to Penn State, but again, was not a take for Florida. I don't care what anybody says. That's one thing that I'm very confident in. Nan Montgomery, damn good football player. I think he'll be a Gator. I think he's going to be your third receiver in the class. And I think that you can argue mixing and matching a lot of them. Joshua Moore and Nan Montgomery, you could argue that they should be flipped. I don't think anybody's really going to argue with Vernell Brown III. But yeah, Nashawn's someone that I think will rise. Not that I think he's going to explode onto the scene. I just think that On 3 and 24/7 will update their rankings more appropriately soon. And that will cause him to climb up the boards there. It's not that I think he's going to burst onto the scene or do anything crazy. It's just how I think things are going to work out. Just in terms of, again, his recruitment, his ranking going up, not him necessarily doing anything. Michael Fasusi is also set to commit this weekend. He's not committing to Florida. So I want to get that one out the way. Looking at his rankings, On 3, 32nd player in the country, 7th tackle, 8th player in the state of Texas. 24/7, 27th player in the country, 5th tackle, 8th player in the state of Texas. ESPN, 9th player in the country, 2nd offensive tackle in the country, 3rd player in the state of Texas. Rivals, 10th player in the country, 3rd offensive tackle, 3rd player in the state of Texas. On 3 composite, 12th player in the country, 3rd offensive tackle, 5th player in the state of Texas. 5-star tackle by every service but On 3. Okay? 6'5", 300 pounds already. I think that initially we'll see a Texas or Texas A&M commitment. I'm not saying that he's going to be a kid that flips. However, I am going to say that Michael Fasusi is one of those guys where Florida's not going to back off. And you're in the door with him. And you got back in the door when you rehired Joe Hamilton a few weeks ago. You rehired Joe Hamilton a few weeks ago. And later that week, he had Michael Fasusi on campus for a grill in the Ville. You're not out of this completely. It's a long shot, but you're not out of this completely for an elite offensive lineman, which you desperately need. Michael Fasusi is someone that, when Joe Hamilton got hired, I did a show about it, and immediately I was like, hey, this gets you in the door with a guy like Michael Fasusi, and that's happened. I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm not saying he's going to commit. I specifically don't think he's going to become a Florida Gator. But you're not out of the running there. Still very much a chance for Michael Fasusi. The Gators are still trying to make something happen with Tavares Dice, who is currently committed to Auburn. I don't know. At one point, I felt like he'd flip to Florida, but I feel like maybe Auburn's held off long enough to sustain that commitment. We'll see, but you desperately need more offensive line help if you're Florida. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.